Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Ayesha from CxO Global Forum, a knowledge sharing platform for all the C levels across Pakistan and around the globe. Every time we have some very interesting guests with us. Today as well, we have Sir Sajjeed Aslam with us, who is a partner at SpectrEco LLC. Assalamu alaikum sir, how are you?
Walaikum salam, and thank you very much for inviting me here.
So, starting off with your background, can you share a bit about your professional journey and how you became a partner at this post?
So, my background is actually from the business family, and we are the early one who started, who deviated from the family tradition and went out for the job. Started working with a multinational in Pakistan. In a 2 years, I was working across the Asia Oceania zone, and that's basically where we started looking the things differently. That gave us a good understanding of a different perspective,
Right.
inclusivity, and the focus on how we can really do the things in a right way, which is which is in line how the nature has designed the entire ecosystem. So it gave us a good understanding at that time. Definitely, ESG or sustainability was not something which is a forefront of any strategy, but that gives a good flavor that how people are thinking at a public sector level, at a government level, at a private sector level, at a business level, or even at a SME level. And by the time people started talking about sustainability in a different way, and the earlier learning which we had, we started retrieving it and start looking in that how people were doing these things before. It's just that at that time they did not have a ESG or sustainability label. It was under the CSR. It was under the health and safety environment standards. So there are a lot of different names from which this ESG and sustainability has evolved. And particularly in 2015, with the Paris Agreement, once it's concluded, and suddenly the climate change and the climate action that become a forefront for every organization and the governments as a fundamental strategy and the way of working. So this is where we started. At that time, I was working with a ACCI, one of a education organization, and I was looking after the public affairs, working with the different governments on the sustainability agendas and the public financial management agendas. So that was quite exciting. And at the same time, as a family, we had certain investment in the technology in the ESG space. And then we decided to let's focus on the business and let's jump full time on this side. And that's where that SpectrEco was born.
Right. So, what inspired you to specialize in ESG, and how do you see technology intersecting with sustainability initiatives?
I think the biggest thing is the people and taking the responsibility that the way we have lived our life and the way we have developed the business, that's not a sustainable way. We will not be leaving the world and the planet in a shape which is sustainable or which is usable for the generations to come. So I think the one realization was to take the responsibility and start doing the 2 cents which we can do. And then when we looked at the global framework, there were 631 plus regulations and the standards, and it was very confusing for the businesses and the governments to really understand what to follow, when to follow, how to report, how to engage. So that's where that piece of technology came into play. That how we can make it simpler for investor businesses as well as governments to start adopting the sustainability practices and start executing and taking action rather than keeping everything in a at a strategy level. So making it easy to execute those wonderful strategies which exist out there and provide them a roadmap or a execution capability which is simpler, easier, and quicker, so we can start seeing the impact and actions on ground.
Right, sir. So, what were the key projects or initiatives that you have been involved, and what were the outcomes?
I think the biggest projects, which if I pick up that, it's helping governments to set up their NDC, their national determined contribution, or let's simplify it, a national mitigation and adaptation plans. So the first thing to objectify it rather than creating a subjective plan, and then helping the governments to raise funding for it. In our language, we call it the climate finance. So you have an adaptation plan, you have a mitigation plan, but every plan require a substantial funding to execute that. So this is a one area where I work with the 8, 9 different governments in Asia Pacific to help them create that kind of framework where they can go and access the money which is available out there. It's just that they do not have a capacity or understanding how to access it. Then in the private sector, we are still working. We are on the conservation of islands, and that conservation of islands basically involve everything from energy system to water system to construction,
Right.
waste management, ecology structures and ecosystems out there, marine life, and that lead to the additional ROI, helping them to understand the compliance market and the carbon credit side of it. So these are the projects which help them to have a better funding arrangements out there and a better narrative and understanding with the customer and investor at the same time. We are also working in a North America with a couple of cities to really create them really create a new narrative, that sustainable city, not as a label, but a real sustainable city which can be substantiated through all the data set and auditable data, so they can not only access the grants and the concessional loans, but they can also access the commercial capital for public private partnership. uh, in a private sector, we're also working with the one university. We started a project in a very interesting way for the transition of their own buildings, but it
Right.
ended up by creating a course on so they can also train their students and they can engage their student in that project. So it's not only the transition roadmap for the university, but that also created an opportunity to create talent which can replicate the same thing for businesses and other universities. So I think these are the areas where we really take pride that our 2 cents or our contribution in enabling those transition journeys, uh, that's basically give us a satisfaction and the purpose at the same time.
Right, sir. So, how do you approach advising clients on incorporating ESG principles into their business strategies and operations?
I think our approach is a very business focused. So we start with the business goals.
Right,
It's not something they should be doing in isolation. So they have to really identify what business goals they are looking for, whether they are talking about access to fund, whether they are talking about the price premium, like in a hospitality industry, any eco-friendly hotel can
right,
charge better rate as compared to one which is not. And not only because they are travelers or tourists who come there, because there is a certain regulatory requirement where the corporate have to report their business travel and scope 3 related emission. So that help them, if somebody can, hospitality industry can substantiate that scope 3 emission related data. So the corporate travelers specifically, they prefer to stay in that kind of hotel where they can substantiate and understand how much carbon emission their activity is generating.
right. So, what role do you believe technology plays in addressing environmental and social challenges, and how do you leverage it in your consulting work?
I think the biggest driver for adoption is the visibility and the transparency, and the technology is a one of our area which help you to capture that data, and that can be shared with the public and the other stakeholder with the confidence, and that's also provide an opportunity to get assurance around that information. So it's not something which I'm claiming or I'm labeling. It's something which is properly substantiated as per the frameworks and the standards and the regulation, and that actually help the stakeholder to have that kind of confidence. That cannot happen without the technology and the data streams which need to be processed through that kind of technology. It's required just like any ERP for the financial reporting. Similarly, the technology is
Right,
required for sustainability reporting. End of the day, when you really want to showcase what interventions you have done and how you have progressed and the impact, there has to be a data set which can be assured by a third party. And there are a lot of regulation around the world which are either way requiring the businesses as well as governments to bring that kind of information if they want to do the stakeholder engagement either for the funding or for the project or even for the public private partnership.
So, can you discuss any innovative technologies or approaches that you have implemented to enhance ESG's performance within the organization?
I think the biggest challenge in today's world as we speak, there are too many regulations. It's not, we can't say it's over-regulated, but any business which is working in 2 to 3 jurisdictions, there are different regulations which they need to follow through. And our technology at SpectrEco, when we build that technology, this is some area which we solve that problem, that if you can let know the system, which jurisdiction you are working in, which industry you are from, and based on that system automatically pick up what are the key metrics or ESG metrics or sustainability metrics you are bound to follow, right? So it's basically take care of that based on the regulation, based on the jurisdiction, type of industry, the business goal, whether it's access to capital or whether it's a price premium or access to the new market, based on the business goals and any frameworks, let's say any ranking rating which organization is looking forward to. Based on that, you don't need like 10 people sitting in a room and doing everything. We have created a knowledge base which automatically system pick up and suggest that these are the things which or key matrices which the business or the government or investor should be looking at if those are the key objectives which they are working on. Second part comes into the complexity, that how to set the targets. What should be the right targets which they should be looking at it maybe in a 5 to 10 years time. Again, we have created a system which in a SpectrEco side, it automatically create a recommendation based on a different algorithm, that these are the kind of targets this particular business or this particular site, or if there's a physical site, or this particular asset class should be looking at or at least set for them. And then the third area which is important, that what are the key interventions they should be doing to achieve those targets. Again, in our case, the system brings it out as a recommendation that if these are the kind of targets in a X timelines, so the system will suggest that these are the key interventions which are very well tested, or whether these are the one which are recently adopted by many other businesses, or these are the one which is coming from the latest research. So system bring again that kind of recommendation. So the entire system or the journey in the system help us to reduce the need of that expertise and the man hour which otherwise any business has to really put in there for different stages or a progress which they are planning to make. So I think the biggest innovation is the recommendation engine, which is compliant with the which comply with the regulations and the framework as well as with the business goals and objectives.
Right, sir. Uh, Moving forward, how do you stay updated on the emerging trends and the best practices in both ESG and the technological field?
I think it requires a team. So we have built a team and we have created a culture that every team member have to spend 5 hours a week learning anything. So we have created a culture of learning. And that learning could be even learning a music or learning cooking or learning anything which they like to. But that's create a habit for them, that how they can train themselves to learn new things. And over the period, I think that learning habit now converted for us in a situation where whenever there is a change in the regulation or change in the technology, they automatically jump on that, they learn that, and they try to understand how they can use that new regulation or new technology to really facilitate the clients, governments, or investors to do things in a more, I would say, easy way and with at a certain pace. So I think this is a mindset which we have to create to keep learning those things, but that's required support from the both sides. The organization allowing them to use the 5 working hours in a week out of 40 hours to learn something which they feel want to learn. At the same time, the initiative from the team side that they use those 5 hours in the best possible way. And the people who are self motivated, believe me, these 5 hours convert into many other hours as well, because that's become their second nature. They try to learn everything objectively and with the discipline.
Right, sir. So moving ahead, What challenges do you commonly encounter when advising clients on ESG and technology initiatives, and how do you overcome them? Because we know the challenges are a part of life and nobody can upgo them.
I think luckily when we are working with the clients, we always have an opportunity to help them understand the future. So we take it as a responsibility that if our research and our data is showing a certain pattern and a trend in a certain jurisdiction, how we can share with the clients and how we can make sure that they understand it and they can incorporate in their strategy. Change management is definitely when we say the challenge. If you are sitting in a room where you have got a senior people, board members, the CxOs, they have their own opinion and understanding, so we have to help them to go through a change management process or a learning journey, and we have to conduct that through the certain workshops so they can start looking the business goals, which their responsibility or obligation or accountabilities towards either the shareholder or to the owners, or if it's a government, then it has to be from for the citizens. So when they start seeing the linkage between their core business objective and how they can achieve it better by the using the ESG or sustainability as a lens, I think that's where the wow factor comes in. So I wouldn't say the challenge, but the biggest opportunity we are sitting on is to help people understand and go through that learning curve, and that takes a little bit longer as compared to what people normally expect, that you have a half an hour conversation and wow, everybody understand ESG. It's not the case. You have to really help them to create that linkage with the business goals and the sustainability lens, and taking and seeing the benefit. It's not only the compliance play. There is a proper
Right.
ROI case, and when they start looking at the ROI, that's basically create the driver for them to start adopting it in journal, unless until they are operating in a country or in a jurisdiction where the regulation is already in force. Then we have to help them how to monetize the compliance. So whatever compliance and the good work they are doing, how they can monetize that one. So that's where our technology comes into play. That's where our advice comes into play.
Right, sir. So, how do you measure the impact of ESG's initiatives and technology implementations for your clients?
I think very objectively, because everything which we do, it's linked with a certain business goal, whether it's access to capital or it's a access to new market, it's a sales growth, customer retention, talent retention, and productivity gain. So all our KPIs are very well defined and objective. They are not the subjective one. So whatever we are doing, we can track that through the data in the system, that whether we are achieving it or not. That's a one side of it. Second part comes to the impact on the community, and then it's an impact on the nature itself. So when we look at that side, again, there is a lot of data and information which we are capturing in the system, which can help us to really track that kind of impact. But the biggest impact which I have seen, and I really enjoy that, is when the businesses start engaging the local community as a vendor or as an employee, and they start providing them the training and the business opportunity. So in a year or 2 years time, we see that the business is getting a benefit of a better retention of the team. They get the better access to their procurement and the materials which they are trying to do. But most importantly, the entire community become vested in that business, so that create a purpose for them to grow collectively, and that create a economic well-being as well as the social well-being for that particular community. So it takes a little bit more than a year, so normally it's 2 to 3 year cycle. But any business who started doing that, we have seen a marvelous result in terms of the business profitability and the more loyal and dependable and reliable supply chains in terms of the human resource as well as in terms of the partners.
So, sir, in your opinion, what are the most critical factors for companies to consider when integrating ESG principles into their business strategies?
Normally, advice is that don't look at as a compliance play. Most of the businesses look at a compliance play, and then they just treat it as a box ticking exercise, and they keep investing in that at the same time, but they never monetize it. So I think the biggest thing which the businesses or need to understand is the linkage between their sustainability effort and the hardcore business goal, whether it's a revenue growth or it's a profitability or again a better working capital management. So whatever the hardcore business goals they are looking at, or even the R&D for that matter, creating a new products, innovation. So all those things, they have to link it to the sustainability and the ESG lens. And as soon as they do that, they start seeing that pieces of information, which in our language we call it data, but that start bringing those insights, that how we are removing the waste from the system. And as soon as we remove the waste, anything like if we are not using the time of the team properly, so we are wasting their time. If we are not be very careful in energy consumption, so we are wasting energy. So as soon as you become more conscious, all these wastages, you start eliminating or bursting that waste. And when you reduce that waste, it automatically start improving your operating profit. So I think the lens, the way we see it, it will make a difference, that how that adoption will happen in a different part of the world. Our significant work is happening in Europe and the North America and the Middle East side. Definitely, there are a lot of learning and the preparation which is required in countries like Pakistan now, where they, if they want to become a part of the global trade and they want to stay relevant, this is an ideal opportunity to work a little bit harder and stay ahead of the curve, so they become a more reliable and certified partner for the global trade in Europe and the North America as well as in the Middle East. So this is the kind of thought process which we need within Pakistan or any other developing country at the same time.
So, sir, how do you collaborate with other stakeholders such as investors and community organizations to advance ESG's goals?
I think collaboration is a must. So first thing we have to understand, this is a space where we have got a common goal and we need a collective action. That cannot happen in isolation. Not one
Right.
organization, one country, or a one society can do that. So it requires a collaboration, and the collaboration can work on a very different level. The collaboration could be a very commercial collaboration, or the collaboration could be around knowledge sharing, capacity building, and making sure we have got more advocates within the society and the business community who can who can raise awareness around it and who can let people know it sounds complicated. It's not. It's just doing the right thing for the right reason. So I think the biggest collaboration which we are doing is sharing knowledge and creating that advocacy network which can help businesses to understand the things in a better way and create those small resources which can help them to start their journey as a self-service journey where they get a minimum support and they do not have to really commit big investments in at an initial stage, but they can start having a pilot of their own with the minimum effort and with the minimum cost. And from a pilot to scale journey, they can decide with the more evidence which they will see, pick up a one business goal, work with that in a 12 to 18 weeks. And based on that 12 to 18 weeks progress, they can decide how they want to go further. And that will give a good taste to them that how this sustainability and ESG journey is working. So I think collaboration is a name of the game as we speak. And we openly collaborate with all the knowledge platform, with the non-government organization, with the governments as well, and also with the other technology companies who are working in a similar space, or other advisory organizations or the consulting organization or businesses who are working in this space. Right now, there is no one single organization or a government who have a capacity to really handle that in isolation or independently.
Right, sir. So, what are your aspirations and your goals for the future of ESG, and how do you plan to achieve them?
I think the biggest goal, if you ask me personally, is something which I really like and I really want to focus. We have got a one of a product which we call Transition Academy. For me,
Right.
because starting from Pakistan, something which started in Pakistan from a let's say from a home, from a one living room, and now it's a global company which has got offices in North America and the Europe, and now going in Middle East and Asia Pac. So I would like to really position that transition academy for countries like Pakistan, where that talent can be developed and that talent can support the rest of the world to get onto that journey. Recently, we created our first session in Lahore, and we got almost 40 people who have gone through that practitioner training of 100 hours. It was a great learning for us. But the biggest thing which we liked about it, it was a very mixed group, very fresh graduate and very thorough professionals. Uh, but their excitement about the learning and then implementing those practices in their own professional life as well as in their personal life. I think that purpose which they got by learning what ESG or sustainability thing can bring to the table, I think that was an exciting area for us, and it was an exciting learning. We are working with a lot of universities now in Europe specifically and UK, where they are incorporating that content which we created initially for our own team's training into their bachelor's and the master's program. So these are the type of discussions which are happening. The one thing which can really help us to transition from a current state to the next one is not going to be the funding in isolation. It's a funding for the talented people. So you need that money to implement something, but then more you need are the talented people who can use that money effectively to really implement those interventions for climate mitigation or adaptation projects.
So outside of work, what are your hobbies that you are passionate about?
Uh, Research is something which I love. Reading is something which I love. Cooking is another my personal passion. I would love to cook 21 course meal for people to come to my place and I can serve them. So that's a one of a area which I really love and I enjoy. So that's my key passions which keep me going alongside with the work.
So some one advice that you would want to give to someone who is watching us right now.
I think my advice, and that's particularly for the youth, anticipate and prepare yourself. Don't go with the flow. Create your own
Right.
future, right? Define your future. Don't wait that somebody will come and they will do the hand holding and then that's how your career will progress. I think this is the time, given the available information, anticipate that what it's required and what your key goals are, and then start preparing for it. It will take a hard work, but it will take a hard work once. If you don't do it once, then you will keep doing it throughout the life. So we have seen, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who see people around them who are struggling all the time rather than making an effort once, and that will take hard work. And when I say hard work, we are talking about working 16 17 hours a day and putting
Indeed,
that
right.
kind of hard work, and because there is a learning curve, and there will be a time in a 3 to 4 year that 16 hours worth output they will start generating maybe in a 30 minutes. But that's a learning curve. If you avoid, you will keep working 6 7 hours a day and still that output will not be there. And any financial stability or a financial sustainability which we have seen is only there when the individuals in the country, the citizens of the country, have taken that responsibility for themselves. The biggest example I would say Indonesia, where they are right now, one in a five is an entrepreneur. They have taken the responsibility that they would like to really progress financially and socially. They are not dependent on the governments and the employers anymore. And that's a change which we have seen in the last 20 years. And today it's over $1 trillion economy. It's not because they are very different. They have got a similar challenges like the countries like Pakistan has. They have similar the government structures which we follow through as well. But their citizen, their individual, they decided 15, 20 years back that we want to take the responsibility and create our own future. And they have worked hard and they start their day somewhere like 6:30 in the morning and they end somewhere like 8ish in the evening. And that has created a nation very differently. So hard work, anticipate, prepare yourself, set your goals.
So it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that our viewers would be able to learn something out of it. And once again, thank you for the time that you took out for this discussion.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, CXO Forum at the same time. Thank you.
Take care, sir. Thank you.